I watched, what's it called? I already lost it. Great start. Lisbon Action Heroes 3. I watched Lisbon. What the?
I wonder if you can hear that.
Probably not.
Perfect. I'll just sit
You're
here.
just gonna sit there and just sit there and massage yourself.
Yeah. Got a massage gun. You don't have a massage gun, do you?
I don't.
You don't?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't feel like I get enough pressure out of them. Is the thing.
I kind of agree. Like, I actually prefer regular foam rollers, but this I could be way more lazy with. Like, I could just do this, like just chilling.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with a foam roller, I feel like I have to be super active with it. I'm like hitting all the corners, and I have to be on the floor, and so this is a good alternative for when I just want to be chilling.
Can I try some of that real quick?
Yeah. Hit it. It has different attachments.
Yeah. See, not work. See, okay. So
Right,
yesterday.
well, this is on the lowest setting.
Yeah, but okay. Yesterday I saw. Yeah, yesterday I saw Ian. No, still. And he. Oh God, I feel like I'm bruised there. Okay, so he was applying.
Ian, our physiotherapist.
Yeah, he was applying crippling pressure to my adductor.
Oh yeah.
And it just feels like it's fully bruised today. I haven't checked for bruises.
Yeah. Well, it probably is a little bit.
But yeah, I can't get the same crippling pressure with that. So
you're saying Ian is abusive?
Pretty much.
Okay. On record.
Needles, crippling pressure.
Okay, so sorry, you were saying.
I was saying I was watching today. I watched Lisbon Action Heroes.
Yeah, I should have watched that. I didn't watch it yet. So
yeah, it's good. But the thing is, it's still kind of like one of your typical parkour edits. I don't have a whole lot to say about it other than the one thing that occurred to me when I was watching it is outside of like the guests in it, because they have people come from out of town, we always talk about the UK being like the parkour capital. But there's always also a part of the year where I feel like everyone goes to Lisbon.
Lisbon is like it's one of those destination parkour areas, right? Like yeah, you're right. Everybody talks about the UK, and that's a destination for community. And I'm not saying that there's no Lisbon community or anything, but it just feels like it's less about the Lisbon community and more about like it's Portugal, you know? There's like this whole the spots are incredible. It's a beautiful part of the world. I've still yet to go to Lisbon, so
yeah.
I can only speak through what I see on.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I was like, "Oh, that's got to be the next stop," you know. If
for yourself.
Yeah, if I have to check off places to go for parkour, just purely for training, for parkour tourism, that stands out as the place I haven't been that I have to go.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because I still need to go to the birthplace, do the pilgrimage. But you've already checked that off this year, so but yeah, the other one I haven't done is Lisbon, and that feels like it's a big question mark in my mind of what that's like in person. Well, their main spot, Chaos, is I think they get kicked out of there really regularly now. I think it's kind of hard to train there now.
Is that the one that has how do I describe this? It looks like there's a kind of a turning staircase in the middle and some access ramps to the side and just more walls than you can shake a stick at.
That's the spot.
Yeah. So
also a cool name for a spot.
Pretty good. Good job, Lisbon, on that one.
Yeah. Very cool name.
Anyway, you should watch the video. It runs long, like how we don't like parkour videos to run long, but it is a good overall watch, and there's some really sick lines in it.
Cool.
The talent. Your usual characters are in it.
All of the usual characters?
Most of, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Joe Scandred in this one too?
He is.
Literally every single video this year. Amazing. Okay. Well, did you see Gizmo style battles?
I didn't watch any of it yet, and I kind of I didn't want to look at a story stream. I know Josh Dowie was posting on his story to go check it out.
You know who watched it, right? Or who won it, right?
Kevin.
Yeah.
Mr. Franzen.
Kevin Franzen. I saw one, I guess, because I don't really know exactly the full format of it, but it sounded like he did 4 runs, and each one was different. So it's really cool to see at least one of them, what he chose to do. And it doesn't surprise me that he won, because he's definitely he fits the style criteria, I think, super well when it comes to at least what Gizmo style battles is looking for.
Also, Matt was throwing the event and not competing.
Well,
so that
yeah. Of course, yeah. But yeah, super cool, looking event too. I don't know if you saw any clips. Did you see any clips?
Yeah, I saw like a little bit here and there. I like that
they had lighting. They had really cool lighting, which seemed to make it look really epic.
Yeah, I still have lighting on the list for this year for SPL. It's something that in the past we've talked. The problem with Origins is we got the windows on the side, and it actually can be kind of detrimental to some performances with a really hot light coming in at the wrong time, and so you're looking at a challenge and you just have this light pouring on you.
See, maybe we push it later.
So what I'm thinking is I was going to try to get just some cheap covering for the windows, just blankets, tarps, whatever, and then probably still have some of our house lights on, but then get extra ones, or turn all the house lights off, because I like the idea of being able to darken the audience too. But yeah, we haven't posted times yet, so we could just have it really late.
What time is a UFC at Madison Square Garden? What time does that happen at?
Main card 7 p.m.
So typically it's a 7 p.m. PST. Right? So, okay. But they have prelims and stuff before that. Interesting. So, 10 p.m. Eastern. What time is that in, Europe?
I mean, it would be better for them than 5 p.m.
That's what I'm thinking is because actually that was a piece of feedback I remember
hearing. It'd be 4 a.m.
It would be 4 a.m. Okay,
yeah.
So not 2 a.m. or whatever. Yeah. Okay. Still kind of.
Yeah, I think the reason why we pulled it back is because we had so many years where we would just run late for unforeseen circumstances, and last year was the first year where
we tightened it up, right? So
everything just went smooth, and
except for the day one. We're not going to talk about that though.
And it would be cool to start at a later time, 7. I hope that if we did something like that it wouldn't trigger unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, this is a conversation for another time. Yeah. Probably off camera, but
is this a let us know in the comments sort of thing?
Well, I feel I don't know. Sure. Let us know in the comments what time should SPL 2 happen.
Feedback, yay.
Give us some feedback. So, speaking of events, there was a really big event that happened recently.
What? Wait, what are you drawing attention to?
I'm drawing attention to the televised event that happened.
Oh yes. Okay. my brain was actually going somewhere else.
All right. So this was.
Yeah, I guess. Okay. Yeah. I'll accept the connection there. It's valid. Yeah.
Yeah. The segue. It's a segue.
Yeah.
It's not a great segue. So Britain's Got Talent.
Britain's Got Talent, an event that
featuring the Parkour Collective.
Mm-hmm. The reason I don't call it an event is it does happen every week. But yes, we will continue with this topic now.
Weekly event. Mm-hmm. At least in terms of parkour, it's a pretty rare occasion. Mm-hmm. It's on TV again. Britain's Got Talent with the Parkour Collective. So the Parkour Collective is Ed Scott, Travis Vercake, whatever his last name actually is, and George McGowan, and technically also Tim Champion, who wasn't included in the, I know you were going to correct me there, but he wasn't included in the Britain's Got Talent feature. I don't know why, but maybe he was busy doing something else.
I think because he's just in Australia.
Yeah, fair.
Or Dubai, or wherever. Where are you, Tim?
Where in the world is Tim Champion? So, first of all, like, what do you think about? I mean, before we actually get to Britain's Got Talent, what do you think about like the Parkour Collective as a concept? What do you think it is? It's seemingly just kind of popped up out of nowhere. So, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know if they threw it together just for Britain's Got Talent. It is so that crew, and I think they actually proved it on Britain's Got Talent, can put together a show really well. You have some of the top. Well, that's like the top talent in the world already. Like all of those guys are in the top 10 talent of parkour in the world, and so if you wanted to make
definitely
the best
in
performance
Britain.
team. If you wanted to make a performance team, there you go. And yeah, I think they probably put on, I think for a short performance, from what I saw in Verkey's vlog and also
Oh, you watched the vlog?
live show.
Cool, I watched it as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably one of the smartest played parkour performances I've seen in terms of like putting together a tight show that was interesting. You can never go very long with a parkour performance. Those for like the athletes can't do it, and it'd probably just get boring. So, and I thought for like a simple setup and for like their skill sets and stuff, it was, yeah. I thought it was really great for that. It's an interesting evolution to see too, like what parkour performances used to look like in comparison. But what I think of the team, I think, you know, there's a couple guys in there. I know Ed and Tim and George actually. Verkey's kind of newer to it, but the first three I mentioned do a lot of, or have done a lot of performances, and so it's just kind of like, all right, maybe they're deciding let's put our powers together to see if we can get some more jobs. That's all I got.
More power to him. I mean, it's like one of those things where this is the question I think that kind of comes up in these scenarios is like, is a parkour performance, is that a viable path towards monetizing parkour? Is there enough demand for parkour performance to do it? Is it something that interests the people who are doing it? And also the toll it takes on the athletes. You know, it seemed like they actually managed to handle it super well. They had zero preparation going into it, according to Verkey's vlog, and they just kind of like quickly choreographed some ideas, and then on the stage when they were practicing, they were able to kind of come up with some additions or things that they can throw in to make it a little bit better. But they did really great on the fly. But it's like, how often are parkour performances going to be like an option for them to even pursue? And is that the purpose of the Parkour Collective? Is that just kind of like an opportunity to like pull together to like go after jobs, auditions, and things like that, try to get in movies? Or is this just literally like, we want to do parkour performances? We don't really know.
Yeah, it made me really reflect on just the history of parkour as a performance job or career, because that was the thing when I started parkour, and that was like, it was synonymous with being a parkour athlete, was, at least in Vancouver, with a lot of the guys that got into it early, was synonymous with becoming a stuntman. And several of the people that I got into parkour with, or got me into parkour back then, did go into stunts and basically left parkour. And it was just something that I personally too, I would always like get really excited if there was an opportunity. And now I kind of like at this stage, let's say even if I was younger right now, I think at this stage I would be like less stoked on performance opportunities because there's not a lot of growth that comes after usually, like typically. So you could get a commercial, or you could get just a performance, like a live performance job. A lot of prep goes into it. Usually you're not getting paid for as much prep, at least for the live performance things. For commercials actually pay a lot. But there's usually not anything that you can leverage on top of that unless you really go all in, get an agent, do all those things and really try to make it your career. But if you're just trying to train and then hoping these things like land for you, it doesn't. Yeah, I don't think it's the best path for a parkour athlete anymore to try to be a performer.
Yeah, kind of like I watched there's like a clip on Britain's Got Talent that like on their YouTube page where it just shows kind of like the performance that they do, but there's none of the talking afterward. So I had to like look into it. I tried to find like the full clip because I wanted to see like what were the judges' reaction to it. And one of the questions, I can't remember who asked, one of the judges asked them like, well, like if you were to win, like where does this go after for you? And it's clearly like really heavily edited, so who knows, there might have been a longer answer. But Ed basically says like, oh yeah, well like we want to go worldwide with the Parkour Collective. And it's like, what does that really mean? Is he just saying that because TV? Mm-hmm. Is he just kind of giving a generic answer because he doesn't have an answer? Or is it like, do they really want to do parkour performances worldwide as a job?
I think if it paid enough, probably.
Yeah.
I just don't think it ever will, particularly when your act is like 2 minutes long, or less. I forgot to mention, this is the second time that a parkour team has been on Britain's Got Talent, and Simon was very mean last time.
Yeah.
He said something to the effect, this isn't a direct quote, but he said something to the effect that it's less interesting when there's no risk of you hurting yourself on concrete. He said when you take it away from the, because they showed a video similar to this one. There's like an intro video that they put up where the Parkour Collective is doing parkour outside, and then they arrive at the venue, and they showed a similar video to that the last time parkour was on Britain's Got Talent, and the video submission, like they were all excited about it, and then when they did their live performance, which I actually think more work went into than this one, that was Simon's comment, was that it's less exciting when it's not on concrete with the risk of you hurting yourself.
Well, when you take parkour and you put it into this like on-stage performance element, it's like way less cool.
It's kind of weird too.
Yeah.
It's just kind of weird. Like I think parkour can look really cool in the center of a stadium or arena, like Street League. So you build out something in the center, and it's just more three-dimensional too. When it's on stage, it's very two-dimensional.
Well, the stage itself was super basic. It was like 2 platforms, like a bar structure and a higher platform. And it was like, okay, what can you do? You can like vault across the platforms, you can jump across them, you could swing on the bars, and you could swing up to the platform and maybe jump on the bars on top. So there wasn't much you could do. But I think what was cool about the Parkour Collective was they really did a good job of performing to the judges. So like, Ed comes out, does a thing to get up on top, and then he points up to the balcony where George is, and he front flips down. And then right after that happens, Verky flips right in front of the judges. So it's like this like emotional kind of experience for the judges. So I feel like they played to that really well, like played to the judges really well. Mm-hmm. It's not just like everybody's on stage and people are taking turns doing stuff. It was well choreographed, which is cool because they didn't really have much time to choreograph it, and they came up with something great on the spot. But where was I going with this? I lost my train of thought here. Yeah.
You want to try? We'll come back.
Yeah.
We'll come back because I got two things that I wanted to mention that I feel like work against a parkour stage performance, regardless if you're able to get into the crowd, and it's still a stage performance. So one is what's going to happen on Britain, how it's going to play on Britain's Got Talent.
Yeah.
And as freaking cool as it would be for them to win, and by the way, we can talk later about how this is good for parkour, because it is.
Oh, I definitely want to talk about that. Yeah.
So we'll finish with the positive, but I went onto the YouTube and looked at what they're up against, and at the time their video had 250K views, which is cool. There was another video that had 3 million, and it's some kids it's probably way more, yeah, some kids from I believe Uganda doing some dancing, and it's not what I don't think anyone would consider to be highly skilled dancing. It's fun, and it tells a story, and it provides an emotion, and there's like this golden buzzer thing that I think is part of the show that they hit mid-performance, and it was this big deal. And that has way more views, and so do any of the singing performances. So stage is always going to be song and dance as like what people will pay tons of money for, just like worldwide. If you're thinking of like what people are attracted to for stage performances, is to go to concerts, to see pop stars or whatever, so to see singing or to see dance. Those have always been the highest.
There's a pretty big exception here, and that's circus, like Cirque du Soleil.
So that was the second point I was going to make, was that does this already exist?
Perfect. So I set you up really nicely there.
Does this already exist with Cirque du Soleil? And there's parkour performers that have gone into Cirque du Soleil and are still in Cirque du Soleil, right? So if you're trying to, if that's your thing, like if you're doing parkour and you're like, I really like performing and I want to make a career at performing, that's probably an avenue that you could go into, is actually Cirque du Soleil, rather than trying to package or repackage parkour.
You brought up a really great point earlier, which is like when you said particular for like a 2-minute performance or whatever, right? It's like, yeah, like you can't do parkour for very long as an athlete. Like it's not an endurance-based activity. Like unless you have a team of 10 people, you're not going to be able to make performances that are particularly long, which would mean that if you're hired for a performance, you're likely only going to do a 2 to 5 minute performance. I don't know. Like, I don't know how long you can stretch it for, unless you could tell a really great story where there's not a ton of actual parkour happening. It's not going to be particularly interesting to watch. But the one thing about the kids from Uganda doing the dancing is that video also, I'm pretty sure, provided some like context and like did a bunch of like emotional storytelling around like pulling on your heartstrings as a viewer and being like, oh, this is like, pulling people up through dance, and it's it's this whole like thing about, whereas like parkour is just kind of like, oh, just a couple of white dudes jump on stuff, there's no,
that's parkour.
There's no story behind who they are and like what's so intriguing about their individual stories. Like they came from a poor background and then through parkour they found themselves, and then, or whatever it was, right? Like that could make it so much more enticing if the viewers have a stronger connection with them. But yeah, there's really not much of a connection you can have with them outside of like, wow, this is incredible and it's really cool. But that kind of brings me to the point of, this is good for parkour, because I just kind of quickly skimmed through the comments on it, and it's very positive. And it's funny because it's often not, when parkour is in media, it's often not very positive. It's often very like what's the point, or it's mocking, or there's even a point in the performance where one of the guys who I think is like a host of the show, like fake vaults a chair and goes parkour. So it's like, is he mocking or is he excited about it? You tell me.
I'd say in that example, he's excited.
Yeah. But largely because it's like, because they also make a joke like, oh, do you think you could jump up and grab one of those bars? And it's like, yeah, they're actually recognizing that it's really incredible what these three guys are doing. So yeah, parkour, like, this is great for parkour, particularly in Britain, because Air's in Britain, as if they need more more legitimacy there.
More people doing it.
But yeah, I mean, I'd love it. I'd love to see parkour being respected at the same level across the world, and being showcased in these contexts. But when it comes to parkour performances, I agree. It doesn't seem like a sustainable or really viable opportunity to continue down. So I think this is great for the parkour collective, for each of them as a group and individually, because maybe this opens the door for other opportunities. But I hope it's not just like, we're going to put together all these performances around the world. I hope that's not their plan. I would hope that their plan is something potentially more viable.
I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong, you know? if they were to, even if they don't win, but let's say out of this, they get the attention of someone who can back them and help them go worldwide with some sort of performance that, you know, I think it's just there needs to be a story. And I've seen this done before too with parkour performances, where there are sometimes like story elements. And so sometimes an actual like theater performance will feature a lot of parkour, because like there's theater performances that have a lot of action in them, right? And so you could tell a story with parkour, but again, now you're adding things that you have to add so much to make it compelling, whereas just the performance of stunts, because that's the description on Britain's Got Talent too, is like parkour collective does stunts or something, like stunts is in the word. So that's what it is. It's not compelling enough and doesn't leave a lasting impression enough when there's no story, and it's so much easier to tell a story with song and dance.
Yeah.
I closed on the negative. Dang it.
Let's go back up.
Positive. I would love to be proven wrong.
Prove me wrong. To be proven wrong. Okay, yeah, but of course that's still the negative really, if we're looking at it. Well, I don't know. Here's the negative again. Do you remember the performance, the like series of performances where like Sebastian Foucan and Levi Muhlenberg and
Madonna Tour?
Yeah, the Madonna Tour.
Mm-hmm.
I think like pretty much everybody came. I could be wrong about this, but I think I remember hearing pretty much everybody came away from that like totally burnt out and hated their lives after. Maybe not hated their lives, but like it was like a really difficult and challenging experience to go on tour with Madonna, and it might have been lucrative, but it's like, at what cost? So I don't know. I'm hesitant about parkour performances as like a viable, like sustainable way to make a career in parkour, because it seems to me like it's a quick way to start making you not enjoy doing parkour.
Yeah, it just depends on the hours, and that's, yeah, I think as you mentioned, like going on tour, you got to do back-to-back performances all the time.
Yeah.
And I think I can appreciate too that the parkour collective, like that wasn't their hardest stuff.
No, yeah. Like they're doing doubles or they're doing singles where they would typically do a doubles. Like if it was a competition line, it's smart of them to play it down a level, because it's like the vast majority of the audience isn't going to know the difference. It's like Ed did a cork. He could have double corked, but he did a cork, and it's like, why would he double cork when he Like he could do a cork and it will have literally the same exact impression on the audience and the judges.
Back to positives.
Yeah.
I am stoked that it's on a widely viewed, youth-centric show that has a lot of eyeballs on it, that is outside of parkour, and parkour hasn't had an opportunity to be on in a long time, because that Britain's Got Talent season that I was talking about, that may have been like a decade ago. It was a long time ago.
Well, before you go on, I wonder how big Britain's Got Talent is like these days. Because I know it was like really big before. I mean, but we're not in Britain, so we don't know. I don't know how big it is now. I'm sure it is. Like I was looking at the YouTube, it's got like 19 million subscribers or something along those lines, and a lot of their videos have tons and tons of views. So it's obviously still reaching a lot of eyeballs.
Yeah, I don't imagine it gets watched. Well, it probably gets watched on TV, but because it can be accessed through so many other platforms, is why it's still probably a big deal.
Yeah. The big, I mean, another positive here, they crushed it. They really did do a good job pulling together the choreography and making an entertaining watch.
Yeah, that's the best parkour performance I've seen.
Amazing. That's coming from the man himself. How many parkour performances have you done?
Have I done?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I would always try to find ways out of them because I don't flip. So I would be part of like the organization of, but as far as actually performing in, not too many.
Okay.
Less than 5, let's say.
Oh, okay.
In 2 decades. but I've probably been involved in like 20.
20. Okay. Yeah. So you're experienced in the business. Any more positives you want to say about Britain's Got Talent?
I feel like best parkour performance I've ever seen.
That is the top. That is the top. Yeah. The top positive.
I don't know. Name one that you've seen that you thought did better. Because I think part of it is too just that the guys are like so high level, and so even though that's maybe like 70% for them or something, it's still really high level.
Yeah. And I don't even know if it's 70%, honestly.
Yeah, no, I mean no one goes 100 when they're doing a live performance.
Like if I recollect like what they actually did, it's like this is not even close to their full power.
You mentioned competition lines too, and the thing is like competition lines, you rarely see a flawless competition line.
Yeah.
It's like crazy rare. It's because usually someone messes up a bit. So, and you can't for that. For like a stage performance, you can't. It has to be flawless.
I can't even like. I'm trying to think of like the hard things that happened in it.
Ooh! I just thought of something because I don't know if anyone they're going to listen to this, but just a piece of advice too. If they get another opportunity, and I don't know what their time on stage is, but I haven't seen for this type of performance, and this works really well to draw it out, but it's like basically failing something multiple times to get the reaction of successfully getting it. But it's a tricky thing to act. But if they were able to throw that in where one of them maybe does like, I don't know, a flip pre or something that's like legitimately hard, but they can definitely do like 10 out of 10 times, but then they intentionally screw it up or try to stick something, they should bring like some water on the stage, do like a water challenge on there. That I think these things could hype it up a bit for Britain's Got Talent.
Up where it's like you don't want to fall in the water.
Yeah. And then they actually, 2 of them actually fall in, and then the third one gets it or something. I think that would sell really well on Britain's Got Talent if they can.
That would be really cool. I mean, I'm hopeful that they'll go all the way. It's super hard to do that, I think, but it'd be sick. I'm curious to see how their next round goes. I don't know how many rounds they have to go through, but really curious to see how their next round goes because it seems like it's going to be more exposure for parkour.
Hell yeah.
And that can't be a bad thing, right? Unless it's Michael Scott making fun of it.
Unless it's not being called parkour.
Yeah. But it's the funny thing is like Ed introduces them. He's like, yeah, we're the Parkour Collective. we're a group of free runners. Yeah. Why?
It was interesting, actually, when I was in Brighton. Jay Batrick was referring to himself and the group as parkourists.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There you go.
Just openly, that was like the first time I had ran into someone where in conversation it was naturally flowing, and I didn't want to draw attention to it. I was just like, oh, I don't know how I feel about it. I'm still, because it's. I think that was the word that for the longest time parkourist people were against.
Yeah.
Because it sounds kind of weird, but it also really makes sense. And it's the thing where people outside of parkour, they'd be like, "What do we call you? Is it parkourist?" Or like, because parkour is no,
it's
that
definitely
doesn't
not
make any.
parkour.
You can't say that. It
Okay,
doesn't-
hold on. Let's go through the list of options, and we'll get our audience to comment on what the best option is. And I don't want to turn this into a huge, long conversation about the terms. So
all right, list your options then.
Okay, so we've got the old school, the OG trasseur, or I guess we can go English translation of tracer. Okay, so trasseur or tracer. It sounds weird saying tracer. We've got parkour athlete. We also got parkour practitioner. That's kind of been thrown around, right? We've got free runner. And we have parkourist.
Can I throw one more in?
Please.
I don't know if it's like my favorite, but there's a bunch in there that I don't like anyways. But parkour player.
Parkour player. All right. Is there any others? No, I don't think there is. Okay, so out of those 6 options, vote in the comments below. What is the best way to refer to somebody, one who practices parkour?
It's a debate almost as old as the parkour and freerunning one.
Yeah, maybe
They're
just about
they're
as
entangled. There's an entanglement there too.
Gives me anxiety just thinking about it.
So you name dropped a moment ago, and I don't know that name, but I knew what you were. You said Michael Scott.
Oh,
I don't know who that is.
Michael Scott is the character in The Office, played by Steve Carell.
Okay, I thought you were referring to something else.
What
I thought you were referring to the other topic.
Oh, the other topic? Okay.
I thought you were trying to weave us into the next
topic.
topic.
Well, let's see. That would have been really artfully done.
Yeah, because I thought you were referring to someone making fun of parkour by not calling it parkour and calling it something stupid.
See, you're weaving in this segue really nicely. See? Just ruined your segue there by calling it out. Flumping.
See, and
it
we
really
could also
rolls off the tongue.
Also flumper.
Flumper. Okay, so
big news, everyone.
Big news, everybody. The newest parkour game is coming out soon, and it's called Skate 4, I think. Skate 4, and there's a parkour mechanic, and I think I don't know. I haven't played Skate. I don't really know. I'm not super into video games, but Skate has, I think, had some parkour-like elements in it before, where you can climb up on buildings, you can front flip, and you can do kinds of things like that. And EA, or like the developers behind Skate, they announced that there's a thing that you can do in the new game called Flumping. And this is thank you Henry Blue for bringing this to parkour community's attention. But they're calling parkour Flumping, and they're saying it's a combination of flicking and jumping, which I actually don't really even know what that means. But basically, Flumping is the parkour mechanic in Skate, and Henry rightfully has called them out on it and said, like, why aren't you just calling this like parkour? Why are you like inventing this whole new term? And there's all types of like all sorts of potential backlash that we can receive as a culture around why it's bad to call this flumping.
Yeah, it's not even so much the backlash is like, okay, so we already have the parkour freerunning problem. You have other things that get confused with parkour, like calisthenics and tricking. And now it's something that's so clearly parkour, and they're not going to, like, I don't think we wouldn't be even having this conversation if they were calling it freerunning, which I wouldn't be like a fan of, but I would understand.
Yeah. No, it's really dumb.
It's really dumb, and you just shared with me some videos that you pulled up before we started recording here of gameplay or like previous gameplay or whatever, where I wasn't as bothered, I guess, before seeing those, but when I see those, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of parkour in this game. There's a lot of moves you can do. It's not just like a little, because if they were going to call it flumping and it was just like a thing that occurred in the game and it was really goofy all the time and it involved bailing or something, because that's kind of what it sounds like. It sounds like you messed up. But when it's actually like executing parkour lines and flips and there's so many techniques you can do, it's just so absurd that they're not calling it parkour.
Well, they literally, in this announcement video, they literally show a clip of game footage of the character doing a flyaway precision onto a skateboard. And they're saying, and as they're talking about the term flumping, they're showing this clip. So it's not just like off-board movements. It's literally parkour that they're calling flumping. And I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt initially, but man, it's pretty obvious that they're taking the movements that we do as a culture and they're renaming it. And I think it's just unfortunate because this could be good for parkour if they just call it a parkour mechanic.
It's really good for parkour. It's really like we have taken parkour's taken inspiration from video games,
and
like,
skateboarding too.
Yeah, like Assassin's Creed, had parkour elements before we were. I think a lot of people would say that tackbacks and catbacks, 180s, whatever you're calling it, came from Assassin's Creed. Although, like, you could see David Bell and some of the Yamakasi doing returns and things like that, but then they would appear in Assassin's Creed and wall runs and things like that. And so even like some of the American parkour community early on would call, or Prince of Persia would be they would call a tackback off a wall or a 180, whatever you call it, they would call it a prince, I think. Mm-hmm. Probably, unfortunately, still do in some places.
It's a weird term, but the thing is, Assassin's Creed called it out. They were like, when they were developing that game, they were like, this is a parkour mechanic.
Oh, so they actually...
Yeah,
okay.
It was not accidental.
Mm-hmm.
It was heavily influenced by parkour that influenced the gameplay. Mm-hmm. And so they were like, yeah, they're doing parkour. Mirror's Edge, another example of a video game that used a parkour mechanic. In fact, it's a first-person shooter kind of game, and you can shoot, but but it's actually, the way the game is designed is you're better off trying to sneak around and accomplish, get through the levels without fighting. Mm-hmm. Which is very parkour element, right? So, but yeah, skate. I mean, even some of the Tony Hawk games had you could kind of jump around and climb on stuff. And Tony Hawk was heavily influential for me as a person, and just in our generation in general, because it introduced me to skateboarding, and even if I never got super into skateboarding, it was culturally, I felt like a part of the skate culture in some ways, and that's been heavily influential. And so it's a shame that that Skate is just actively trying to like down, like they're incorporating so much more parkour gameplay than many other games out there, yet they're just completely shitting on it by calling it flumping.
Yeah, I wonder, so without trying to be like very like reactionary to it, I wonder just why. And to know why, we would have to know the history of the development of the game. And something that you brought to my attention the other day, and I'm trying to get confirmation on it a little bit too short notice for this episode, for this podcast, but we think we know who did the mocap for this game, and they're definitely parkour guys. And so that's weird.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to hire parkour people to do the motion capture.
And tell them they're doing parkour. Tell them they're doing parkour.
Hire them because they do parkour, and then get them to do parkour things. Mm-hmm. And then integrate it into your game. And then, instead of calling it parkour, you call it flumping? Yeah. Come on.
And so I'm wondering if maybe there's a legal angle or something, or... Yeah, I don't know, because I think
maybe it's because Adam Dunlap owns parkour.
Does he? It's just I don't know what the angle is like, and I think people are kind of it's seemingly a lot of the reactions from parkour is they're making fun of parkour. Skating is making fun of parkour, and if that's true, well, like I don't know. So like the guys in the IG clip that I saw talking about it don't look very cool to me. They don't, I mean, I'm not, trying to say anything like talk about like appearances or whatever, but it's like I don't really care if a bunch of guys that look like dorks to me that don't appear very fit or young or anything, if they're if they're making fun of parkour, I don't really
So
care.
All right, so let's play the angle of let's give them the benefit of doubt. Mm-hmm. For some reason, they can't use the term parkour. Mm-hmm. So they're like, let's make up a stupid name for it. We'll call it flumping, a combination of, according to them, flicking and jumping. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know where this term flicking comes from. And maybe
someone was trying to say,
skateboarder knows what it is.
Yeah, someone who skates the other day was trying to say, and I can't remember what they were. Yeah, I don't know.
It means something. Anyway, let's just assume it's. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, it's still, even if even if they're not allowed to use the term parkour, flumping is certainly the wrong term to use. Why does it have to have even a name? Why don't they just call it like off-board movement or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't know what the gameplay is like. Is there like a selection you have to make? Switch to flumping mode. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or why? I don't know. Switch to off-board.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it feels like there doesn't need to be a term for it. Yeah. It would be great if they called it parkour, because then it's obviously more exposure for parkour and could potentially get a whole generation of youth into our sport. Mm-hmm. But here we are. We're in the world of...
And I guess the worst case scenario is you have... what people... The two worst case scenarios people are afraid of is, one, youth that... And I highly doubt there's many of them out there that haven't heard of parkour are being introduced to parkour, but it's being called flumping. And so now they're trying to figure out where they can learn how to flump. Yeah, it does switch to a verb better than or I guess it is already than.
Sounds so stupid.
Because you can't parkouring.
But you want to go flump?
Yeah, no, it is stupid. But so there's that. That's a bad scenario, but probably not a very likely one. I think the scenario that most people are not looking forward to is being called out for flumping when you're doing parkour. So is like the scenario of the hardcore parkour, the thing, we already had an episode talking about being not that bad. I don't know. Are we being made fun of if someone rolls up and is like, "Oh, Flumping"?
Maybe.
I play video games, but I just don't. I think this is almost just kind of like a wasted thing, because I think everyone's still going to recognize it as parkour. I think parkour's too big, actually. Parkour's bigger than this game.
Yeah, okay. So
it's not bigger than skating, but it's bigger than this game.
Yeah, and so I agree. It's not. This isn't the end of the world scenario that people might think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're going to be hard pressed to find young people who don't know what parkour is. Mm-hmm. And so people who are going to play skate, they're going to know what is happening on screen. They're likely going to know, like, this is influenced by parkour, even with it being called Flumping. I don't know if we're going to have the experience of people like yelling Flumping at us while we're out training. That's not desirable, and it's annoying, but is it the end of the world? Those people are going to be yelling something like hardcore parkour at us anyway. So I guess the principle is what I'm upset with, is that you're taking parkour and you're clearly using parkour as a heavy influence on all the off-board game mechanics in this video game, and yet you're going to call it you're not only not going to call it parkour, but you're going to call it a really, really stupid name. And that's the issue I have with it. And again, I don't think there's going to be super big consequences as a result, but it just seems like a dumb thing.
Yeah, it seems and I think that's the reaction too, is it seems hateful, and without like without knowing the story, that's how, particularly in that clip, where they're like, "Oh, what is this?" Just a bunch of guys having an office laugh, And I think that's been the reaction, is that it feels like a bit of an attack. And I don't really blame parkour people, parkourists, from feeling like they're being attacked.
This isn't the first time that skateboarding as a community has attacked other action sports.
So I had a question for you, actually. Earlier I was going to say, like, do you think there are skaters that like really dislike parkour?
I don't think. I mean, I'm sure. Yes. Yeah. Let's say yes.
I think years ago I could have said definitely yes, but I think as time has gone on, and because part of it too is like parkour needed to develop more, and it needed to like really stand the test of time to be like, no, parkour is its own thing. Because I think early on, skaters were just like, oh, we do something that's way harder, and this is stuff we just do for shits and giggles.
So,
but now, because parkour is kind of identified itself as, and we have star athletes. I think Dom has done so much for that side of things, like Dom's style, because his style resonates with skaters, I think, a lot, and I think he's done so much for maybe turning some skaters that maybe didn't like parkour into being appreciative of parkour.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, the question that you posed to me is like, do you think there's skaters out there who hate parkour? And I think the answer is yes, but it's like, those are just people as individuals. Do I think skating as a culture hates parkour? I don't think so. But skating as a culture definitely hates rollerblading. Or at least did for a very long time. And I think largely that's because they use the same spaces. They're using the same skate parks, they're using the same ramps, and a lot of the same spots are going to be used. Like, they're going to skate the same rails and so on. Whereas parkour rarely actually interacts with skateboarding on the streets. Maybe there's like a couple of spots that will have like some interest in. And then there's definitely people who do parkour in skate parks, which can be like if people are trying to skate there and you're trying to do jumps or flips, then they're gonna be annoyed by that. But I think it's so rare that our two cultures intersect in like literally out in the streets that I don't think there's any reason for there to be any kind of beef. And I also think that skateboarders aren't threatened by parkour coming in and being like an activity that skaters are going to go flock to instead, or potential skaters are going to go into parkour instead of going into skating. So I don't think there's like a need or any kind of animosity towards parkour from skateboarders, but as a community, skateboarding has been historically pretty judgmental and kind of hateful towards other sports, rollerblading, scootering, etc. Even like longboarding is not cool to most skateboarding, you know? So are we at risk of like there being like a whole generation of skateboarders hating parkour or making fun of parkour because of this flumping term? I don't know, maybe, but I don't think it probably isn't going to matter that much.
Yeah, it doesn't. It also just doesn't like it. I'm just trying to think of a scenario where someone is like, those guys are flumping, you know. It just doesn't. I don't think that becomes a thing. I don't think it really lasts. It's what they're doing with the game is stupid, and I still think that most people are going to play the game and just ignore the term. So I don't think there's this threat of the scenario of like youth skaters growing up and looking at parkour and like being like flumping, you know, as like some sort of adopted slang. I think it's actually that the creators aren't very hip and they thought it was funny, but I don't really see like young people like in on the joke.
It's like, well, it's funny because it's just like a few guys like sitting in a room like flumping, yeah, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like most people aren't gonna find that as like funny, and they're not gonna get it. Mm-hmm. Like, what does that mean?
Well, the guy in the interview like didn't get it. He's an older guy, but
yeah. Anyway, flumping. I'm gonna teach some flumping tonight.
Yeah. I feel like I had another thing I wanted to add to it, but you know, I think much like what I think is going to happen with this game, we should with the term in the game, I think we should kill this conversation.
All right.
Because I think just like flumping, it's yeah. I know. Well, actually, one thing I was wondering is, do you think it's possible that this gets retracted? That they correct it?
I mean,
or I guess I'll even ask another. Do you think it's worth it for parkour practitioners? I mean, it's already happening. They're commenting on the thing, but do you think it's worth it for us to like really push? You know, like for almost like the FIG movement, right? Where there was continuously a lot of like, you know, don't relent. Like everybody keep hashtagging, keep showing that you don't like it. Is it worth it for us to do that, for parkour to do that, or do you think those efforts will go nowhere and we should just move on and try to just pretend it's not happening?
I am not in the business of trying to tell people what to do with their time.
I'm not saying tell people what to do. No. I'm just saying, do you think do you think the effort is worthwhile?
I can talk about what I think for myself,
mm-hmm.
and it's like I'm not going to take the effort to comment on a social media post that is like in opposition to using the term flumping. But I am going to talk about it on an hour-long podcast with you about it, and
There's a little more context than.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, we're having a conversation about it. But yeah, like in terms of, do I feel like the need to let the skate developers know that what they're doing is stupid? No, I don't think so, personally. If other people want to comment on it and tell them that what they're doing is stupid, then like more power to them. Is it going to be effective? I have no idea. To me, it seems like somebody in like that works for EA should like see this term and be like, this is kind of dumb. What are you guys thinking? Let's change it to something else. So maybe it changes because of that. I don't think it's necessarily because they're appropriating parkour. If they do end up changing it, I don't think it's because parkour people are upset, because like our small community isn't going to be particularly like by boycotting the game, you know, or whatever happened. Like people are still going to play it. Whoever was planning on playing this game before is already going to play it when it comes out. So they don't stand to lose anything by continuing to call it Flumping, other than just calling it a stupid name and people being like, "What? I don't get it." I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that?
No, I think I'm mostly in agreement with you on everything there. Just yeah, I'm curious if the because that was, I guess, that clip that Henry shared is probably the first release of the term, because the clips that you showed me on YouTube of the gameplay before this came out, the people that were releasing those clips on YouTube were calling it parkour. Parkour's in the title, and so I wonder if there's enough. Like I haven't looked at comments on this. Like, is there anyone who's in the comments who's like, "Huh, that's hilarious. It's called Flumping. I love it." You know, because if it's all negative, then maybe they will retract it.
Might try to pull this up now.
Do a little quick look. All right.
Well,
yeah, because it would be weird for them to keep it if you're seeing comment sections that are full of people not understanding it. I also don't know if the clip he pulled was from like a longer piece and that was just a moment of it or whatever.
I think it is from a longer piece. I think this is it.
You're looking at the longer piece right now?
Yeah. Because there's like a bunch. Obviously, there's like the Instagram post where all the parkour people were commenting on it, and
so
like,
is that Instagram post? Is that post specifically about the term Flumping and that part of the gameplay?
No. It's just
it?
advertising this like longer, longer form discussion, I guess they had with the developers.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and maybe this isn't even the right video, because I don't even see anything about Flumping in here so far.
So I think it's just being ignored, but if they were to exclusively put out a clip where the title of the clip is Flumping.
So this comment says parkour.
So they used there's a parkour tag in.
No, it just says parkour tag. Like maybe there's a tag game in like I don't know. Mm-hmm. The thing is, I haven't even watched this interview, so I don't even know how much depth they even talk about Flumping, or how much like they show what's like any kind of parkour mechanics or gameplay. But yeah, I don't see. That was the only comment so far that even references parkour, and it didn't even mention anything about Flumping. So, okay. All right, one more. Leave a comment below what you think about Flumping as a term, because it's clearly parkour based on what we're seeing. So do you think that we should be going after the developers of Skate and telling them that we're not pleased with the term Flumping, or should we just let it be and just kind of move on with our lives?
I'm gonna go move on with my life.
Yeah, same. Okay, should we wrap it up there?
Yeah.
Okay, great discussion, Mr. Rene.
Oh yeah.
Thanks again for tuning in. Like the video if you liked it. Leave us a comment on any of those topics that we mentioned before. And we will catch you in the next video.